So good evening and welcome to everyone. My name is Joanna Kerr. I'm a librarian with the London Public Library and I will be your moderator for today. Thank you for joining us for this second event in our Environmentalist in Residence series with Jennifer Chesnut. A warm welcome to Jennifer, as well as to Lynn Brown, Nora Fraser, Dipika Giritharan, and Patrick Donnelly, who we'll meet soon. Hello to everyone, and also a hello to Emily, my fellow librarian, who's helping behind the scenes today. Welcome, everyone. Just a quick note, live transcript is available if you'd like to see closed captions during our program. So the instructions to do that are just going to be coming into the chat, but really it's just a little box at the bottom of your Zoom screen with the letter CC on it. There are some limitations, it's not terrific, but the full captions will be available once the recording is posted to the library's YouTube channel. Okay, so I'd like to start today by acknowledging that for myself, as a second generation European settler whose paternal ancestors made their home on the lands of the Acadia First Nation, and as a third generation European settler whose maternal ancestors made their home on the lands of the Ardoch Algonquin First Nation, that the territory I'm speaking to you from today is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabeg, as well as the Haudenosaunee, Huron-Wendat. My camera is just going to go off for a sec there. Lenape-Wauk and Attawandaron peoples. The Crown treaties in this territory are known as the Upper Canada Land Surrenders. These treaties continue to be living treaties. The Indigenous communities in this region include Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, Oneida Nation of the Thames, and Munsee Delaware Nation. We invite you to read the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's calls to action and to reflect on acts of allyship with and actions to support Indigenous communities. The link to these calls to action is being shared in the chat. Acts to raise awareness and take personal action could also include reading books by Indigenous authors, a selection of which will be included in the follow-up email after this program, or by connecting with local Indigenous serving organizations. Thank you for reflecting on this acknowledgement. I'm honored to be here this evening to listen, to share, and to learn with all of you. Today, Jennifer will welcome her guests, followed by our breakout rooms, where you'll be able to choose which room to join, but you can leave and join groups as you wish. And then we'll come back together for a discussion before we close. After we finish our formal program and recording at 8:30, Jennifer will stay on Zoom if anyone would like to chat with her, as we used to do when we gathered in person. It is our intention to offer a welcoming and inclusive environment for everyone. Please reflect on this as you share your thoughts and questions. Also, we'll be drawing prizes after each of our programs for the participants of our live sessions, for your choice of a composter or rain barrel, thanks to the City of London, or for a gift card to a Green Economy London business. I may be in touch with you at some point in the program to confirm your name for our draw. Thank you to our partners. This program would not be possible without the support of the Houston Family Foundation, and we thank the City of London for their ongoing support and partnership in this program. So now I'll start with introducing our environmentalist in residence, Jennifer Chesnut. Jennifer is an environmental educator and activist. She is currently studying emotional responses to environmental challenges as part of a master's program in education in sustainability, creativity, and innovation. She is a facilitator in the Work That Reconnects, a peer-led group process that supports moving through eco-despair to empowerment. A very warm welcome to Jennifer. Hello, and now I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Joanna. Hi, everybody. Welcome to tonight. Welcome to our session on eco-emotions, finding our way through emotional responses to the state of the planet. I'm grateful and honored to be with you all tonight. So as we get rolling here, I just want to share a few things. I want to first express my extra thanks for all you folks joining us tonight on a topic of emotions, and difficult emotions at that. So yeah, this is not, as we know, like really a widely embraced topic in society yet, but more people are naming our emotional responses to the state of the planet and writing about it. And I hope and believe that in the future that eco-emotions will become a mainstay piece of environmental engagement in our country. So, and especially, you know, that's so important for our well-being. So well-being will be a big theme tonight. I also, before I dive in, want to just really also, because we were talking about emotions and concepts, I just want to affirm all of our sovereignty in emotions and conceptualizations, our autonomy. That's so important. And so tonight we'll be bringing forward some emotions that are emerging in culture as a phenomenon. And, you know, it might really resonate with you, some pieces not. But really it's shared out of a perspective to just, you know, help people at this complicated time. So whatever works for you, keep. If it doesn't work, then you can leave it in the Zoom room. Yeah, but I think that's so important. And also on the note of eco emotions, you know, we might be experiencing it, we might not. We have loved ones who could be experiencing it, or people that we work with. It's all normal and good. There's no right way, and we don't want to, you know, we don't need to overdo emotions, but tonight is a point to build confidence and understanding in what's happening in our emotional life as we look out in the world with climate change and water issues and other issues. So I hope it's helpful to you tonight. Thank you, Joanna, so much for the warm welcome and for introducing me and welcoming us all. As you shared, my profession is environmental education. And for the past 10 years, I've been working with youth on environmental issues. And since 2019, pardon me, I also started working with high school teachers, co-facilitating a course on the climate crisis. And so in this process, I've really got to see, you know, the classroom is a bit like a laboratory, and working with professionals and working with young people engaging with issues has really brought to my attention different emotions that are happening for people. And so especially what's notable to me is when I see people already resigned to an environmental deterioration. That's really like an alarm bell for me. I totally understand it, but it's an alarm bell for me. And especially when I witness it in young people who are just beginning in their life journey. So because of that, witnessing of collective emotions in the group, it just has really driven me to ask deeper questions, like what is the impact of knowledge of these issues, either firsthand or on the news, like indirectly. And then further, I guess I'll just share that my interest in this topic goes back, you know, to when I was a teen. When I was a teenager, I began to have some environmental nightmares. And that really caught my attention. And so I went on and studied environmental and social justice issues at Trent University. And then in our community, I began eventually organizing events for the public about these issues with the London chapter of Council of Canadians. I'm very glad that they're here with us tonight. Thank you, Lynn, Nora, and others who are here. And so, yeah, during that process, I also could, like, because I was witnessing the internal world, I was really aware sometimes of like heavy emotions in the room when people gather, and also passion and love and energy. And so I just have been developing this commitment to opening up space to move through that energy so we can do the work in the world that we want, whether that's planting a garden or civic engagement. And as Joanna said, I'm in the process of just completing a 2-year research project on eco-emotions and how to support youth in their responses to climate change. So I'll share some research, and yeah, I hope tonight really puts you at ease about talking about emotions in public. I know Western culture, right? This is not like a norm for us, but I think, you know, with the pandemic, one of the things that has come out of the pandemic is that people are realizing we can't stay alone in our suffering, and actually, like, our suffering is shared. We feel at a distance, we feel alone with it, but actually we are very united in our internal experience. So yeah, some words about, working a little bit with emotions, in public, we come to it, we experience these things on our own, but how do we then, bring that into public dialogue? I think it's really important to create a space for that. And tonight's really just an introduction. We won't, there isn't the space or the preparation to really go into the feelings and have that process to move the feelings, but there's going to be concepts and hopefully awareness built of understanding that people are experiencing these things and what the experts say to do with them. But as we create a space, I just to do that, I just want to put forth one strategy that I have found helpful for working with emotions publicly. You might find it interesting. This strategy comes from Plum Village and Thich Nhat Hanh, and it's this concept that, our emotions are actually a lot like weather, if you think about it, like the clouds and the rain and the sun. So just like weather, the storms come in and the storms go out. And there's sunshine sometimes, and quickly a cloud appears. And so I really like this teaching from Plum Village because it reminds me that even if I'm feeling really badly about something, that I know that cloud is going to disperse and different experience is going to come through. So yeah, I'd like to invite you now gently, if you feel up for it, to do a little sharing here as we normalize this topic of expressing internal experience, and just share in the chat there, what is our weather like in this moment? What is our weather like? So yeah, that's our question, our first question for the chat. So you can either just reflect on that on your own and think, what is my weather like for me? I'd say right now that it's quite sunny, but there's a little bit of drizzly rain. Recently, there's been a fair number of clouds, but the sun has come out tonight, being with you folks. But yeah, encourage anybody who feels brave and bold to break Western cultural norms to go right ahead and talk about your weather in the chat. I'm going to share my weather. And thank you. Thunderstorms, yes. Overcast sky. Beginning to clear, a little rainy. Thank you. Yes, we want to find ways that are secure to express these emotions. And so weather can be a good metaphor for that. It's very Canadian weather, I'm hearing. High winds and unpredictability. Yep. Know that feeling, turbulent winds. Yeah, thank you. A mix of sunshine followed by overcast rain and sunshine again. Nice. So this is one of the ways, that we can make it secure too, especially in a group that has never met before, right? We're just coming together for a little bit of community to explore this important topic. Yeah, and I want to affirm, that, we do have a lot of capacity naturally built into the human system to deal with our emotions. We might not always feel that. I know there's many years that I haven't felt that about myself, but on studying and reflecting, I know that is true. And the evidence for that is that if we didn't naturally have a system that moved through emotions, then we would be stuck with, I would be sitting here stuck with every emotion, negative, difficult, heavy emotion I've ever felt, but they're not here, they're gone. And I know I've been through them, but they're gone. And so we have a natural capacity to process emotions. We're just not often asked in the public realm to exercise that capacity. So I'm inviting you to exercise that capacity and to, if you're interested, become curious about our emotional intelligence. That being said, we have this natural capacity. We are living in difficult times. We all know that. We know it from the war. We know it from the pandemic. We know it from climate change. We know it from various issues. And so we need extra support. And I believe that emotional intelligence is one of the biggest skills of this century in this complicated emotional landscape. So, you know, and also these things out in the world affect us. So right now, you know, we know we're in a climate emergency. Last week, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres made a very stern and serious, passionate warning to humanity that we must keep fossil fuels in the ground, and that if nations and companies, you know, continue to burn fossil fuels and oil projects and coal, etc., then this is a radical act that is endangering humanity and the fine carbon balance of our planet. And so right after that news, probably some of us heard, maybe some of us didn't, it was just a recent announcement, but Bay du Nord was announced by our government as a project that they are okaying for Newfoundland and Labrador. Now, Canada is one of the biggest fossil fuel producers on the planet. And so this news of Bay du Nord being okayed by Canada in the context of all of our emissions, and further on the heels of the United Nations reporting, I don't know, just for me, gave a lot of thunder and lightning. So yeah, when we draw our attention to these difficulties, it can change our weather and it can have an effect. So fossil fuels continuing, despite them emitting greenhouse gases and being the cause of climate change. I wonder, upon that news and thinking of some of our energy policy in other countries and companies around the world, I wonder what your weather is like now when you think of that. You're welcome to put it in the chat if anybody wants to share weather. Rebecca is sharing whirlwinds. Thanks, Rebecca. I hear that. David and Stephanie, foreboding and ominous. Sarah, dreary, discouraged. Yeah. So, we're facing these things, and we absorb and we work with what we can. And the purpose of tonight is about, for me, to be honest, about creating space for the energy to come in that is underneath our emotions and inside, and the great meaning of this time we're living in. So let's put our whirlwinds aside for a moment, and our strong winds, our dark clouds gathering for a moment. And why don't we start? We're going to begin to talk about some specific eco-emotions. I'll share a handful of them with you tonight. And I want to start by talking about what I suspect is probably many of our favorite eco-emotions, and that is that sense of innate connection with species that we love or places that we love. And this has been called biophilia. A scientist, an expert in ants, E.O. Wilson, coined it as biophilia, but humans have always known this experience. Indigenous people have been talking about this forever. Our love and connection. We have all sorts of emotional connections to the earth, right? In challenging times, difficult emotions, but earth is ever there, present and working and operating the best that she can. So I wonder, about biophilia and connection to the planet. Do you have a special place? Do you have a special place that you like to go in nature? Thinking about maybe a place that if you were there right now, it would be relaxing for you, maybe be calming or bring you alive. So I ask you to contemplate your special place, and let's go over to the chat. Again, if we were in person, we could talk, but let's make use of this chat. What is your special place in nature or species? Lorraine is sharing oceans, especially because of whales. And Deshay, the Red Hills of Sedona, Arizona, thank you. Pinery, the Pinery, absolutely. The Sifton Bog, a certain beach in PEI. Algonquin Park or Bruce Peninsula. Gull Lake, cottage, nice. In my backyard, my garden, under a memorial tree of a good friend. Lots of critters come out and the birds are always chirping. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing them, Sarah. Okay. So yeah, we have our places and our species and our special places that shelter us. And so I invite you to just tune into that special place. That place that makes you feel alive and secure and connected to this absolutely stunning 4.6 billion year old planet. And, we've probably had a busy day today and lots of things on the mind. And we are going to talk about 3 difficult eco emotions. So let's just take some time just to take a break and just relax. And if you'd like to, I invite you to get comfortable and summon up your special place in your mind. And if you like, let the feelings that arise when you come there come to when you picture your place. You can think about, what does the air feel like on your skin in your special place? What is the temperature? You can really relax into your space now and think of the temperature, the air, the scent. What do you see in your mind's eye in your special place in nature? Just relax into that. Yeah, nature has been ever-present, living intelligence, dynamic force, supporting humanity's lives and well-being in physical ways, but definitely in emotional ways too. So, since we started on this planet. So thank you for sharing in that experience with me. This time in the 21st century is definitely a good time to exercise our mindful and mental capacities to create well-being. We have full permission to do that anytime. We so often have images pressed upon us through the media and other places, that we don't give our consent for, we don't like. So equally, we can use our natural gift as humans to summon up the good images, the good films of images, of memories, and I encourage us all, if that strategy works for us, to really support ourselves in whatever work we're doing in that way. We're also so privileged in Northern Turtle Island, Canada, to be able to access so much nature around us easily. And so we can really strengthen ourselves through this nature connection to create more well-being in our lives and to also just go about the work of being a citizen in the 21st century. It can give us strength. So I hope you're feeling good now. I want to turn a little bit into the dark. Do I have your permission? Can we go a little bit into the dark? We can go together. Don't go alone, people. don't go into the dark alone. Let's talk a little bit about some eco emotions that can be painful. So yeah, like no surprise here, I don't think. Equal emotions are really a range of feelings, including like anxiety, sadness, fear, as someone was mentioning, overwhelm earlier. And these are very common responses to the state of the planet, maybe a species, an ecosystem, they're common responses. And the thing is about these emotions is that they are very appropriate responses to a serious problem or set of problems. They are normal, they are healthy, and they're also really signs of awareness of what is occurring and signs of like openness and leaning into what is occurring. Now, just to add to that, like at different times in our life, we really can't feel certain things. We have things to take care of in our life. And I think having protection from complex problems and not feeling, if we don't want to open that up, is a good thing. But if we feel open and capable to feel those things, moving into the eco emotions and moving through them with others can be a powerful experience. And yeah, and also just to say that because of socialization and identity, some of us can access these feelings more easily than others. I know for me, who identifies as a woman, it's much easier for me. There's more social permission anyway for me to feel the different feelings. So I think there's extra courage involved depending on your identity to feel these feelings, and it can take more time, and that's okay too. So in general, we can say that eco emotions are on the rise. We're seeing this in countries around the world, North and South, global North and global South countries. And just one little citation here, Oxford Learning said that they saw an increase of mentions of eco-anxiety online in 2019 by over 4,000%. People are definitely noticing and talking about this, and especially youth are like driving the conversation. They're talking about it. They want this talked about. I want to share one study with you tonight. This study comes from last year, 2020, and it really shows the level of difficult eco emotions that are being experienced by people around the world, in this case, youth. And this study basically surveyed a random selection of young people ages 16 to 25 from I think about 10 countries, with different levels of poverty and privilege. And what this study found was that youth are having lots of thoughts and feelings about climate change. And so you can look here to these results from this Hickman et al. Study. The sources are listed at the bottom here. And we can see that 83% of all of these youth that were surveyed said that, people have really failed to care for the planet. That's how they feel. 75% of them said that they feel that the future is frightening because of climate change. And the list there goes on. But youth are definitely, feeling a lot of things. And then when youth were asked about how are leaders responding to climate change, we can see here on the right the percentages. 65% of youth said that the government is failing young people. 64% thought that that the government is not telling the full truth about the impacts of actions that they are taking. And 60% felt that the government was just dismissing people's distress and not considering it in policies and practice and action. And this one I find particularly disturbing is that over half of youth really feel betrayed. on behalf of themselves and future generations. And in other studies, we're seeing that youth feel a sense of betrayal from the adult world because they want to see action, like appropriate action around emissions. So in this difficult study, we can see that, this is not individuals having like a private like experience on their own. This is really inner responses that are arising collectively. And they're arising collectively, as a result of like a moral injury, seeing that life is not being taken care of, and signs of expression that things need to change. This is definitely not a personal issue when people have these emotional responses in response to society and the state of the world, but it can make the mental health challenges that we experience, it can exacerbate them or make them more sensitive. So it requires more care. So often these emotions are really mistakenly privatized. We can start to think, oh, like, why am I feeling so intensely? What's wrong with me? This type of thing. But, it can cause confusion when we think it's just like personal, but actually it is a social phenomenon and an accurate response. And they're indicators also of like awareness and intelligence of what is happening. So seeing eco emotions as a social phenomenon is really important. It can help with well-being. It can take away any stigma or confusion that we feel, just to recognize that this is happening broadly and we're not alone. Or if it's happening to our loved ones, they're not alone, and to acknowledge it. Eco-anxiety is framed on a spectrum. I want to talk a little bit about eco-anxiety and a couple other emotions. So it's framed on a spectrum of intensity. So you've got like on the left here, like worry, anxiety. These are like, can be quite constructive emotions. They're difficult, they're uncomfortable. We don't want to be experiencing them, but they can cause us to act and make some personal changes or do things or talk to people. So they can be quite constructive. Panic, even people might experience panic. It depends on the person. And as far even to like dread and doom on the other end of the spectrum, the American Psychological Association actually defines eco-anxiety as like a doom response. So they really consider, eco-anxiety to be on this end of the spectrum. But other folks kind of more broadly talk about eco-anxiety and like different like waves, and people experience different intensities. And so I really like Bednarik's definition from the Climate Psychology Alliance. She talks about like eco-anxiety is just like a heightened distress response. And you can see here that Bednarik also includes like the somatic response. And I think that's important to recognize that emotions live in our body, and so our bodies need extra care. And this is really a well-being issue. Grief is another, like one of the most talked about and written about eco-emotions in the literature. And it's called different names. The names don't really matter. We just need to be aware that some people are experiencing grief in response to the state of the planet. We'll look at a couple of definitions just to kind of like feel out the experience for people a little bit more so we can get some understanding. So environmental grief. Environmental grief is, defined as like grief relating to just like loss in the natural world. So like loss of ecosystems or animals or plant life, or even broadly the destruction of the planet. Climate grief was conceptualized by Running, who is a climate scientist who wrote on an earlier IPCC update report, and Rennick says that climate grief is really a set of emotions that people feel. So we all know loss from our daily life, right? And in terms of climate, people can experience like denial about it, anger, depression, can move into acceptance. And so this is another kind of way of conceiving of it. Ecological grief is talked about by a number of people. One of the leaders in this field is Ashley Consolo, who has done a lot of writing and educating and awareness bringing to Canadians on ecological grief. Now, I want to highlight in Ashley's definition that ecological grief can be something that is experienced by us, like a loss that's experienced in our community with species or ecosystems or a meaningful place, but it can also be anticipated, like thinking of the future. And it's very common for people around the world to have anticipatory feelings of the future. The last emotion that I want to share today that can be important, because sometimes we see this emotion and we don't necessarily always like it, and we're like disappointed when we see it in others or in ourselves, but it's actually quite common, and it's a natural response to, you know, overwhelm, and a natural response to complex issues is apathy. So eco-apathy has been called many things. You know, it can be called shutdown, it can be called paralysis, it can just be called overwhelm, or something lighter like distancing ourselves from issues. It's really about like kind of feeling helpless. And of course there are people out there that are truly apathetic about what's going on with our home, but there are millions of people as well who, it's not a lack of interest, it's not a lack of care, it's really about not knowing like how they can take part, and so they distance themselves from this issue. I know at different points in my life I can relate to this personally, and so it's really, you know, people not knowing where to start, and it's common. Now, something interesting about eco-apathy is that researchers say that people can break through eco-apathy if they want to through the grieving process, actually, that letting ourselves feel the sorrow or the anger and letting that energy come through actually is a great remedy and healer of eco-apathy. Grieving can create a space, a spaciousness inside. It can it brings more energy when those clouds and the rain passes through. And I can really relate to this, because when I was a teenager with the ecological nightmares, that's when I started feeling grief. And I remember like how much energy I would feel after I expressed my emotions. And I would do that in different ways, through art or journaling, and just through my life. I really feel that I enter the grieving process at different times around nature, and I feel like it's really supported me to look at critical issues and to engage. So I can really relate to that. Burnout is kind of like the opposite, and this is the last one that I'll mention. Burnout is kind of the opposite. It's like, okay, you're feeling there's a lot of awareness for eco issues, and maybe you're really involved, but a lot of action and maybe a lot of feelings are weighing us down. So I know at the end of our session today, we're going to share a link about burnout, if that's of interest to anyone that you know or yourself. It's a link from Emma Louie, who was one of our guests last week. She's been writing a series on burnout for activists. So, like, why are people having these really strong feeling responses, or why can they become strong feeling responses? Like, why sorrow? Why anger? I want to share a framework with you from the work that reconnects, a group who helps people move from eco-anxiety into empowerment and action. I really love this group. It's been very helpful for me to train with them, and I like their concepts, and maybe you will like this. This will be helpful to you. So the sorrow that's coming through, or the sadness, you know, it's coming from a deep and beautiful place. It's coming from love. We would not be sad if we did not care for species and nature and people. The sorrow is coming from love. Anxiety that we might feel, you know, we're a species, we can tell when things around us are in balance, and we're aware when they're not, and we can sense, you know, that things are not in balance, it's not right. And so we feel this sense of imbalance in our bodies, this anxiety. Anger arises naturally. in this situation. And that comes from a passion and a knowing of justice, of what is right and wrong, responding to moral injury.
Jennifer, just to let you know, we have about 4 minutes until we do our breakout intro.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Joanna. Yeah. Okay, that should do it. We'll have 4 minutes. We'll be good. Okay, so yeah, these emotions are coming from deep and dignified places, important places. And behind the sadness and the anger or any other emotion is a well of energy there, of passion and of love. So what is the value of expressing these emotional responses? Why would we take this little cultural leap and express these emotional responses? As stated at the beginning of the talk, I think a lot of this is really about well-being. It's about well-being of ourselves, our loved ones, people we work with. It's about well-being for young people and our planet, our home, where we belong. So from literature on evolution, emotions are seen as important responses that have allowed humanity to adapt. And difficult emotions are seen as a mechanism for course correction. And in fact, the happy emotions, the joyful ones, you know, they are not on their own able to help us make changes throughout evolution that we need to make as a species. So from that perspective, the evolutionary perspective, these emotions, these difficult emotions to the state of the planet are super important. They hold value, they hold intelligence, they are like bells ringing. And we need to ring those bells. We need people to know, you know, the depth of the urgency and to be able to express these things from our heart. Now, what to do with the eco-emotions? There's 3 major recommendations from mental health professionals like climate therapists and others, and they really talk about finding ways to care for them. So I mentioned earlier that the arts, you know, can really be a container. Different arts like poetry I've used a lot through my life. I wonder what arts soothe you and help you express your emotions, but also mindfulness. We did a little exercise, just kind of starting with mindfulness and using our imagination and holding space for our bodies to rest and our minds to rest. All sorts of things, techniques we can use from our personal lives or people that we know, we can just ask. They also say 2 main points. We need to talk about them. We need to break the collective silence on climate change and talk about our emotions so people understand that there is an urgency. And on top of that, you know, folks at the Australian Psychological Society in their climate change empowerment handbook also say that talking about them with others in like secure places can really decrease overwhelm. So that's like one of the key things that is being said about what to do. And then they say act on them. Now, acting on them makes sense. It's helpful. It is the solution to our problems. I mean, the ultimate solution is for governments to be pressed and business to be pressed to make system change and not allow emissions to continue and transition to renewable energy and protect the planet's natural carbon cycle through old growth forests and like protecting natural systems. But in the meantime, we can take the energy that we have, the sorrow and the love underneath that and the anger and the passion for justice underneath that and channel that into action. And actually that's what therapists are saying to young people, to older people, to all sorts of people, to use that energy for action because it moves us out of a sense of helplessness and like overwhelm, like, oh, I don't know what to do, and moves us into activity, which allows us to feel part of something and to be empowered. So that's really what the rest of our session is about today, getting ideas and inspiration from local leaders here that are sharing, you know, the kinds of stuff that they are doing, the networks that we can get involved with them to take our eco-emotions and maybe get some seeds of inspiration for what kind of actions we would like to do. So Joanna, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was So interesting. I really love the way you present that material. So what we'll do now is I will introduce our guests, and then they will give you an idea of what the breakout rooms would be like for you to be able to make your choice. So let's start with our first guest, who is Nora Fraser. She has been active with the Council of Canadians London chapter since 2015. It has provided ways to take action for the climate, water, Indigenous rights, peace, politics, fair elections, healthcare, and almost every other issue that she cares about. Nora connects with nature through bird watching, native plant gardening, and photography. And next, so welcome, Nora. Sorry about that. Welcome. We're so glad you are with us today. And then I will move to Lynn Brown, who has been a supporter for the Council of Canadians since its beginning in the early 1980s. In recent years, she has been active as chair of the Blue Community Committee for the London chapter and as secretary for the London Steering Committee. Lynn is renewed by hiking, riding, and bird watching. Welcome, Lynn. Next, we have Dipika Giritharan. She has a strong passion for sustainability with an interest in climate action and species conservation. She is a graduate of the Masters in Environment and Sustainability program at Western University. As the environmental project specialist at the London Environmental Network, Deepika helps develop engagement opportunities and promote environmental awareness through various programs. She loves to spend her free time reading a good book, sketching, and being outdoors. Welcome, Deepika. And we are also joined by Patrick Donnelly, our partner in the Environmentalist in Residence program. Pat is the manager of watersheds and climate change for the City of London. A warm welcome to all of you. And now I'll welcome each of our guests to take a few minutes to tell us about themselves a bit more before we choose among them from our breakout rooms, knowing that we can change to different rooms. So Lynn and Nora from the Council of Canadians, I'll invite you to take a few minutes to share with us a bit about the environmental actions of your organization and ways people can get involved. Welcome to you both.
Okay. You're hearing me okay?
Yeah, sounds great.
Perfect. Okay. I've been a supporter of the Council of Canadians since the early 80s. It is a nationwide grassroots group, and they, as you see by the slide, we are interested in many, many issues. Protection of water being key, nuclear waste management, the rights of our Indigenous neighbors, trade, fair vote, etc. As you can see, that we also have a lot of alliances across Canada and in London specifically. So the Council of Canadians, a more than 40-year-old environmental justice and social justice organization. Do you want me to talk about the Blue community itself at this point?
Whatever, yeah, with your 5 minutes, whatever you'd like to do there, Lynn.
Okay, the next slide then will show something about the Blue community movement, which was conceived in 2009 by Maud Barlow, the Council of Canadians, and CUPE, Blue Planet, and Au Secours in Quebec. And this is a movement that was devised to enshrine water as a common for us all and for life itself, to be protected for the public before for-profit interests. And so any community, which could be a municipality, religious community, or educational community, can become a Blue community if they make the following 3 resolutions. And they are that they declare that water and sanitation are human rights, that they will not be turned off simply because people have trouble affording them, that single-use bottled water will be phased out and in municipal facilities and events. It may still be sold by other vendors. Bayfield is the only community I know where you cannot buy a bottle of plastic bottled water because they've taken that clear a stand. And the final resolution is that they will promote public ownership. In fact, they will oppose privatization of water treatment or delivery services. And why is this so important to all of us? Well, for me, I'm 75, and I remember when water used to run a lot clearer and when there was much more of it visible on the surface. And I was very pleased to be part of any movement that was going to honor water. So the next slide will show you that after making a major attempt to ask the City of London to become a blue community and being sort of narrowly defeated, the emotions, the echo emotions that we experienced were frustration and confusion and anger. Why would this not happen when the cause is so clear and reasonable to us at least? But the good thing about that downturn was that it made it very clear to us what the barriers were and what we needed to do in order to win through on what we felt was so important here. So one of the things we realized was that city councillors simply didn't understand the program very well, and they were concerned. They're conscientious. They're trying to take care of all of us and the decisions they make. So we really went to work to create documents that would educate about these issues and would also reassure. And we also had a number of meetings with the city engineering department because we knew that if we had their support, then the councillors would feel much more comfortable. And over time and with persistence, the people in the water engineering department became increasingly supportive. They put it through their legal department. They were wonderful. And when the time actually came for the vote and the councillors asked the staff on hand, well, what about this? What about that? The answers were solid and fast and confident and extremely helpful. The other thing we learned we needed to do was we needed to show that the community cared about this and wanted this. So here is one picture showing us at one of several of our petition gathering events. It was also the event where Maud Barlow made her first speech at Brescia as their new chancellor. And Maud Barlow is, if anyone is the mother of the blue community, it is Maud Barlow.
So Lynn, you have about 1 more minute. 1
more minute. Okay, gosh. All right. So we worked very hard to get the councillors on board. We were very lucky to get the support of Labor toward the end, who helped us with an email campaign to find out who was with us. And growingly, of the 15 votes that were going to be cast, we learned that they were very much coming our way. Maybe the next slide. We had Elizabeth Pelosa as a champion, Maureen Cassidy very helpful, and the mayor himself moved that London make the 3 resolutions. So the echo emotion here, folks, is joy. We were so pleased to have this actually come about in March of last year. And one final slide would show the Blue Community Committee. So here are the folks who hung in through at least 1.5 years of hard work, showing, I hope, what is also their joy, their relief, and also the camaraderie that comes from doing difficult and concerning things with other people, much as Jennifer has said. I hope you can see some of that on their faces. And as one of the Blue Community Committee once said, it really, no matter how hard it is good to hang out with people who actually give a damn.
Well said, Lynn. Thank you so much. Thanks, Lynn and Nora. Terrific. So that gives people an idea of that breakout room that Nora and Lynn will host. And now I'd like to welcome Deepika from the London Environmental Network to share the work of her organization. Welcome, Deepika. Yeah, your slides are looking great.
Thanks. Yes, just getting settled. So thank you so much for this opportunity. This event is really interesting so far, and eco emotions are a big thing that needs to be talked about more. So I really appreciate being able to speak tonight. As Joanna mentioned, my name is Deepika and I'm the Environmental Project Specialist at the London Environmental Network. And yeah, I'm very excited to be speaking to you all tonight. So now I'm just going to share a little bit about what the London Environmental Network actually does in the community. So we connect, educate, and support individuals and organizations in transitioning to a more sustainable future. We started operating in 2015 in the community and officially incorporated in 2018. We are a membership-based network that supports over 45 environmental organizations within the city and the surrounding area as well. Our vision is for London to be known as one of the greenest and most resilient cities in Canada. And our mission is to build participation, collaboration, and capacity in our community to co-create positive environmental change. But what does that actually mean? So day to day, we run programs to build capacity with individuals and organizations for them to make changes in their lifestyles or operations. So as you can see on the slide, we have a bunch of different programs, but for the sake of time, I'm only going to go through 2 of them. And you can check out our website if you want to learn more about the other ones as well. So one of our sub-programs is Green Economy London, GEL for short. So GEL is one of 8 green economy hubs across Ontario and 10 across Canada. GEL offers businesses a practical, cost-effective, collaborative, and community-based approach to actually setting and achieving reduction targets. There are 4 different target areas: emissions, water, waste, and environmental stewardship. So what GEL actually does is that it helps support businesses in setting baseline targets, helping them transition to a more sustainable operation. And we also offer other resources like technical workshops, aid with funding opportunities, and so on. So GEL is really focused on businesses, and you can find more information on greeneconomylondon.ca if your business is interested in becoming a GEL member, or if you just want to learn more about Green Economy London, that's also great. And our second program that I'm going to talk about is Greener Homes London, which was actually launched last year. So it's relatively new and is targeted towards London residents to support home retrofit planning. So we do home sustainability audits. These will be opening up pretty soon, so keep up with our social media if that's something that you're interested in. But we also have home checkups. So these are webinars to help Londoners learn more about how they can reduce household emissions. We also send out Greener Homes London newsletters on a monthly basis as well for people to stay up to date, which you can also sign up for through our website. I also just want to say that we are currently offering free home checkups through our Greener Homes London program. And these checkups are really great if you want to find out what changes you need to make to your home to make it more sustainable. That will allow you to reduce your climate impact and improve your carbon footprint. So these virtual checkups are only an hour long, and we're currently offering them for free if you use the code FREECHECKUP. It will come at no cost, so be sure to take advantage of this opportunity while you still can. And you can find all this information on our website as well. And we just opened up applications for the residential rain garden pilot program from Greener Homes London to help encourage local residents to install rain gardens on their property. This program offers 15 participants a reimbursement of up to $1,000 for expenses related to the installation of these rain gardens. So if this is something that you might be interested in, more details on how to apply can be found on our social media and also on our website. And the deadline is May 9th, 2022. And we recently just announced this on our programs. So yeah, if that's something you're interested in, be sure to check that out. If you'd like to stay connected to hear about upcoming events, volunteer positions, and more, you could follow us on social media, or you could also sign up for our e-newsletter on our website. So signing up for our newsletter is just a great way to stay updated on our events, volunteer opportunities, and so on without visiting the website all the time. So it's pretty handy. And finally, here's my contact info. If you have any further questions or are looking for ways to get involved but don't know where to start, I'd be happy to help you with that. Talk about volunteer opportunities or what programs interest you the most. And I promise I'm a nice person, so don't feel too intimidated by that. But yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Deepika. Yes, I can definitely attest to the fact that you are a nice person. Yes, absolutely. So lastly, let's welcome in Patrick Donnelly to give us a chat about his, let's just invite him in to talk about the City of London. Thanks, Pat.
That's great. Thanks for the invitation to share. And I'll be very quick, but just to give you a little snippet with regards to some actions that are happening right now at the City of London, which in our view are very exciting. And they deal with the Climate Emergency Action Plan. It was just approved unanimously by Council this past week. So that in itself is a very exciting move. It is a community plan. City is hosting it. We are preparing it, but it is a city community plan. So it is something that all our citizens, all our businesses, all our groups need to be involved in, and we have room for all of them to be involved. So that's part of my quick little summary to give you an idea of what it entails. It does have actions for everyone. And as I mentioned, all different groups in the City of London. The top right-hand corner of the screen is a logo, which we are just announcing and just using. And I'll just point out that it is showing the globe. It is a global effort, as I'm sure you all know, with regards to the impacts and what we need to do in order to make the change that's needed. So globally speaking, we are partners with a number of groups that have a global perspective. And that should hopefully give the folks that are on the webinar tonight that are from London some comfort that this is not something that we're doing in isolation. We are part of the Global Covenant of Mayors, which is 12,000 cities across the world. That is an interesting group just because they felt that the upper levels of government were not acting quickly enough. And it is at the municipal level where the rubber hits the road, literally. So that group definitely is reflecting that a grassroots approach. ICLEI Canada, which is also known as Local Governments for Sustainability, is also a global initiative started at the European Union, and it has 1,750 cities worldwide, 59 of them in Canada, and London is part of that. We're also very much involved with the FCM, Federation of Canadian Municipalities, and the Ontario chapter, which is the Association of Ontario. The other thing I'll just mention is there's a group called the Big Cities, the C40 cities, and they are the Vancouvers, the Montreals, the Torontos, and they are the larger cities that have the capability of doing much more, much greater because of the need. And because of that, we tend to learn much from their experiences. So again, we're watching those 96 large cities and taking stock of what we can do in light of some of their actions as well. So London's Climate Emergency Action Plan, the first thing I should do is point out on the bottom of the slide is the website that has all this information on it and more, including videos, including frequently asked questions. So getinvolved.london.ca.climate, and I'll make sure that's in the chat box. I don't remember whether we have that going in there already or not. 3 goals, very simple: net zero greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. And you'll see that and hear that in many different levels of government. And that is partly because of the IPCC's reports and recognizing the dire need to do that very, very quickly. The second goal is making London more resilient to climate change. I think in the chat, we've already heard David and Stephanie talk about warmer, wetter, and wilder. That is what we are going to get in London, and we need to adapt to that so that we are able to survive and prosper with those types of changes in our extreme weather. And last goal is bring everyone along, and that's the concept of doing your fair share. And that is actually a concept that United Nations provided for all the countries of the world. And we're using it in London as well, that we feel everyone in London needs to do their fair share. And in order to make that a little bit easier as far as what that looks like and how it actually transposes into action, we put together 10 what we call typical or example households in London. I'm just showing 4 here in these little post-it notes. But the point here is everyone's at a different place. Some people are larger families. They have larger homes. Some people live in apartments. Some people don't own cars. They ride public transit or they cycle. So we're asking people to see where they are and make adjustments as needed. And obviously, if you're a higher income family in a single family home, like the top left-hand corner, you are emitting more greenhouse gases than, say, a lower income household living in an apartment, relying on public transit. So the top line is in blue, which describes the household. And in the very bottom in green is talking about the reduction of greenhouse gases if they do the items that are shown in the boxes with check marks. Again, it's too small for you to see here. In the breakout, if you'd like, we can explore this a little bit further. But these are showing the actions both on adaptation and on mitigation. So both reducing the greenhouse gases that are being emitted by this household, and also what they need to do to adapt to the new future with regards to warmer, wetter, and wilder. And my last slide is just showing the big issue in London is aligning things, and even within the city in our own department. So you will have potentially heard this week, we just started the mobility master plan. Much of the conversation about our transportation network is tied with climate change. So you'll see that we've got one plan, one of 10, which deals directly with transportation and mobility. And our MMP, as we call it, will be tackling that issue predominantly. We have a work plan called Taking Action Now, which is at the household level. And you just heard Dipika refer to some programs that Lynn are helping us out with at the city with regards to actually activating and providing people with the tools to make those changes at a household level. So these work plans are intended to bring actions to everyone in the City of London, including the university, which is work plan number 9, talking about research and innovation. And there's over 200 actions stated within these work plans that we're suggesting, and we did get council approval on pursuing them. Some of them are starting conversations, some of them are actually shovel in the ground. And the other thing I'll point out as a last item is some of these work plans are already started. I mentioned the mobility master plan. The other one on work plan number 8, adapting and making London more resilient, is the adaptation side of it, which is something that I'm leading. And it's already started. We've had a couple of workshops already. Other work plans are in the 2-year, 3-year, and some are up to 5 and 10 years. So they're all different timeframes, but they do show the direction for the city. So that is the elevator speech with regards to the Community Energy Action Plan, or what we call the CEAP. And I'll be more than happy to explore any of that in the breakout session if you choose to enter that one. So thanks, and I'll pass it back to Joanna.
Thank you, Pat. Terrific. So now I'm going to pause our recording before we go into the breakout room. So I'll do that now.
Talk about my suffering. And so we're just reviewing our final takeaways about finding our way through eco-emotions. And 1 is to care for them, 2 is to talk about them. And, you know, a lot of us have maybe grown up in social conditioning not to speak about our suffering. I certainly felt that way for a long time, not to speak about anxieties or other things, but this is a different time period, and it can be very empowering to ourselves and to others to acknowledge, normalize, and recognize eco-emotions as they're happening to many people. So we should talk about them. In fact, the literature says to talk about them, not just at the therapist's office. So, you know, it could be a reason to get some therapeutic support for sure, climate change, water issues, but to actually talk about them in group with people that we feel comfortable with, to name them and normalize them. And that actually is an action in and of itself. And 3rd, to act on them, to take that energy, that passion for justice, that love, that sense of desire for balance, and like moral, just morality, to move in the right direction. So to take that energy into action is so important. It's important for our well-being, and it also helps drive the solution that we want for a stable climate, stable water, the things that we love. But overall, the important thing here is like, don't go alone in this process. Don't be alone. Go with a friend or find community members here tonight or other places or family, and don't face these things alone, right? This is a collective problem. It needs collective solution. I'd like to end with the words of Ashley Consolo, that amazing researcher who is really bringing and rising attention of eco-emotions in Canada. And her and her colleagues wrote in The Lancet in 2020, they said, recognizing that emotions are often what leads people to act, it is possible that feelings of ecological anxiety and grief, although uncomfortable, are in fact the crucible through which humanity must pass to harness the energy and conviction that are needed for the life-saving changes now required. So we can be part of that energy harnessing here in London and work together. We heard from three groups tonight, and there are many others, so we can definitely find our niche and lots of experience and knowledge. Thank you for everybody sharing tonight and our special guests. Caring for your emotions, reading about them. There's a lot of great books being published. Thich Nhat Hanh, Ellen Kelsey, many folks. Here is the work that reconnects leader, Joanna Macy. Lots of great stuff out there. The organization for the work that reconnects that I mentioned, there are facilitators around the world, and a lot of facilitation is now happening online. So this week I just went to their website, I looked up events, this is their website, it'll be put in the chat as well. And here are some of the events that are happening this month. So you can join in, and that's if you want to process the emotion. So if you want to go from like that difficult weather into like a community experience of processing that together and coming out on the other side of empowerment, I do recommend the work that reconnects. And yeah, I guess we're on to announcements. So we have a couple announcements tonight. I know in our breakout room, Deepika was talking about Earth Fest. I'm super excited about this next week, Earth Fest, and of course, really promoting the climate march that will be part of Earth Fest, 3 to 7 p.m. Victoria Park. There'll be a festive atmosphere. We need to come together. This kind of work should also have pleasure. And I'm really looking forward to that. So thank you to all the organizations who are organizing that for London for next Friday on Earth Day. And also, if you are interested in this topic and you want to hear more, there's going to be an extended Eco-Emotions webinar on Earth Day at noon. It's going to be with me, and it's in partnership with earthdaycanada.ca. And so that will be extended. We'll go more into like mindfulness and some other strategies and a bunch of stuff. So you can check out, there's a link in the chat coming as well. And finally, our next session that Joanna might speak to, I'm not sure if her sound is working, but if not, I can wrap it up. But eco-consciousness is next Thursday. It's in person, so we get to be together, 7 p.m. You can sign up on the library website. And Lorena Bousquet-Casera is going to share her knowledge and about like how we can think more in line with the planet, how we can think more like an ecosystem and like change our thinking from being so anthropocentric, which we're trained to think very human-centered, to be more like biocentric, ecocentric, to include other species. So I'm very much excited about that one, and Sheila Horrell will drum for us at that session. So hope to see some of you there next Thursday, a week tonight, I guess. And yeah, that's it for me. I'll try to turn it over to Joanna, see if her mic is working. I'm going to stop my share. Joanna, can you hear me now? Okay. Nope. So no worries at all. This is officially the closing of our session today. Thank you very much for your presence, your heart, and your care. Yeah, it's an honor to share with you tonight. So thank you very much to all our special guests, Deepika from Lynn. Thank you so much, Deepika, and Pat from the City of London. We're so lucky to have such a leader, leading in climate change and the watersheds work over at City Hall. Thank you so much to Lynn and to Nora for your expertise in civic engagement and sharing your network, the Council of Canadians London chapter, with us here tonight. Yeah, blessings to everybody. If anyone wants to put any other words into this space, feel very welcome now too. And I'm going to hang out here in case anybody wants to chat about eco emotions or anything else. David is talking about on May Day. Let's go over to the chat. I see people. Oh, there's a survey, please, to fill out. May Day, David and Stephanie are talking about a festival of resistance in the chat through OFL. Thanks, David. Okay, thanks to everyone. Let me see if there's anything else. There's a survey link, please. If you'd like to give some feedback about this program, how it was for you, please put it please take the link from the chat. Links to Council of Canadians to get more information on how to get involved and email inquiries I see in the chat. Thanks, Nora. Okay. All right, I don't think there is a recording happening anymore. So yeah, that's cool. And yeah, now it's just us. Anybody who wants to stay, please just open up your mic. There's not a lot of us. There's 16. So Joanna still can't hear us. I'm going to just type a message to her just to let her know that that's no problem. Conversation. Okay. So yeah, do folks have questions about